Welcome to Explainer Insight. Today, I'm going to explain the movie called Sick Nurses, released in the year 2007. At the beginning of the movie, a dead woman is lying on a trolley being cleaned by 5 nurses and a doctor. The doctor makes a call and informs the person on the other end that he has another body which he will store for 7 days. 7 days later, the body is placed in a car trunk. A glimpse from the past has shown in which the dead woman is screaming, saying that she will tell everyone that they make money from dead bodies. The woman is then forcefully placed on a trolley, all the while screaming doctor, and a knife is impaled into her heart. The doctor leaves a party to make a call from a telephone booth. On the phone, he complains to someone that the body has not been picked up despite the passing of 7 days. He further explains that such a delay could cause problems, thus it must be avoided. The person on the other end tells the doctor that he needs a little more time. The call ends and the doctor picks up his wallet, from which a picture falls down. He picks it up and looks at its back where a line is written saying, "Let's get married, love Tawan." The doctor turns it over to see the picture of the dead woman in a white dress. Dr. Ta recalls the moment with Tawan while leaning on his shoulder. She's talking about wedding rings when a brunette walks to them and hands in a file. Tawan introduces the girl as her little sister Nook. A message tone snaps the doctor back to reality. He opens the message to see a picture of Nook. He nods and leaves the booth to join the party with a smile on his face. At the party, Dr. Ta's name is announced as the winner of the Doctor of the Year award, and he is called onto the stage to receive flowers. At the hospital, the nurses are shown together in a room as one of them hands out paychecks. One of the nurses looks at Nook, who is daydreaming, and asks how many days have passed since they murdered Tawan. A nurse replies 7 days and inquires why she wants to know. She explains that the dead come back to their beloved on the 7th day of their death. This scares Nook. The nurse says that Tawan will come for Nook for falling in love with her boyfriend. The nurse then exclaims, saying, "It's almost past midnight. If Tawan does come," she says, "she will come for Nook." The nurse named Air goes to a secluded room and starts cutting up a jewelry catalogue. She cuts out the pieces carefully, then sticks them onto herself while checking herself out in the mirror. She senses someone looking at her and turns around. However, the room is empty. I starts walking around the room, then stops in front of a window to look at her reflection. While she's observing her face, a hand comes into her face and she falls down. She watches in horror as a person comes out of her bag and starts advancing towards her. She turns to pick up a knife from a table, but when she looks back, she notices that the person is not there anymore. She runs back into the hallway. Suddenly, the noise of a falling table startles her, making her fall on the floor. There she sees Tawan walking towards her. Tawan walks into a shadow and becomes a ghost as a black hand grabs his neck. Yem is shown doing yoga in her room while doing yoga. She holds her leg up, however, her leg gets stuck midair. Suddenly it falls on the floor. After taking a shower, she walks in front of a projector and looks at the muscle cutting projected on herself. Looking at them, she starts tracing the lines on her body. Afterwards, she sits on a couch with a dumbbell and starts exercising. During the exercise, she feels a hand on her head. She looks up but sees nothing when she looks back down. The ghost is sitting in front of her. She jolts backwards and the dumbbell starts floating in the air. A moment later, the dumbbell is thrown at her, but she ducks to save herself. A storm starts inside the room. Hair comes down from the ceiling and starts grabbing her arms and neck, starting to strangle her. She looks at the ceiling and sees the ghost of Tawan. Slowly, the hair covers her whole face. Jo enters the room and takes her dress off. She turns on some music and starts reading a magazine while eating chips. She then gets up for a drink. She makes a drink from tomatoes water and drinks it up. The liquid makes her nauseous, so she takes out a bag and pukes in it. She cooks the bag on a machine and goes to the bathroom to wash her face as she's busy in the bathroom. The ghost starts climbing the wall behind her. When the nurse notices the ghost, she freezes in fear and stands there petrified. Suddenly her cap is swooped off of her head. When she turns to look, she finds the wall empty. She looks back at the mirror to see a shadow moving across the other room. As she looks around, the ghost grabs Jo's hand and head. It then starts poking her mouth with the brush she's holding, making her bleed. She jerks the ghost's hand off of hers and makes her run for it. However, she soon realizes she's running in a loop of the corridor. Exhausted, she falls on a table. When she gets up, a scalpel is impaled into her thigh. She gets up, pulls the scalpel out and starts limping forward. Suddenly her arm turns black and starts pulling on her hair. Dr. Ta comes back to the telephone and dials the number. However, the number he dialed turns out to be switched off. Ta goes over to a wall and leans on it. He pulls a cigarette from his jacket and remembers how to languid once withheld a lighter from him when he tried to light his cigarette. At the party, a couple starts bickering. Dr. Ta hangs up on an unanswered call while sitting in his car and does a flashback where he's taking a shower with his friend Tuanwit. When Ta asks the meaning of the tattoo on Tuanwit's back, he's told that it symbolizes eternity. Tara gets out of the car and makes his way to the back of the car. He opens the trunk and throws in some ice with the body. Yem, Born and Look are together in a room. Yem and Orn are taking pictures of each other, while Nook sits on a chair nearby. Nook gets up and goes to the bathroom. There she pulls out a pregnancy test strip from her purse and performs the test. After this, she starts dreaming and knock on the door, snaps her out of the trance. When she looks outside, she finds him and Orn begging for her help. Their arms are stuck to a table. Nook's eyes, however, are stuck elsewhere. On the couch, she finds the ghost. Nook cautiously goes out of the room in the corridor. She tries her phone, but when she sees her running across the other corridor, she starts to follow her. She walks into a room, then stumbles and almost falls on a dead person, realizing that she is in the morgue. She keeps on walking ahead and starts to hear someone sobbing. Upon looking back, she realizes that the room has changed and there is a trolley behind her which was not there before. The crying person appears to be in it. The scene then changes and we're taken into the past. Tawan lifts the cover from the trolley, trying to scare someone, but no one is there. She goes over to the door, then comes back to the trolley and pulls the cover over herself again. Dr. Ta comes into the room, looks around and goes back. After a moment, Nook comes out holding a tray on which a bottle containing a blue liquid is placed behind Nook. Dr. Ta walks in and starts to get intimate with her. Later that night, Tawan starts beating. Look up. She grabs her by the hair and throws her on the floor. She tries to beat her again, but the other nurses save Nook. She then yells that she would tell everyone that they make money from dead people. Nook goes over to the trolley from which she can hear the sobbing. She pulls the covers off of the person who is revealed to be Tawan. In sheer horror, Nook backs away from the trolley. She opens up her cell phone with shaking hands. She then looks back, but her sister is gone. She turns her attention back to the phone and calls Dr. Ta to warn him about Tawan's occurrence. When Ta answers the phone, Tawan makes Nook sweet talk him to hurry back to her by saying she has a surprise for him. Nook then tries to hit Tawan, but there is no sign of her while running in the corridor, and Mandarin are separated or gets in the elevator while him ends up in front of the control room and runs into the control room and looks into the cameras. When she finds Orn on the screen, she warns her over the phone that the ghost is behind her, but the phone gets disconnected. Orn is thrown to the side of the elevator and takes a look at the other cameras and finds each and everyone being tortured by Tawan. Are being strangled by her own hand, unable to breathe properly, collapses to the floor and gets pulled away. In another room, Yem manages to free herself from the hair, but to no avail, as the hair turns her upside down, then lowers her into the fish tank and drowns her. Jo, on the other hand, is being forced by her own hand into eating trash and salt. After freeing herself, she goes over to the water cooler, but the hands pick the bottle up and throw the water straight in her face. Icebag bumps her into another room. In there she looks at the preserved specimens in the middle of the room. Tawan is sitting on a shelf. Jo opens the door to run, but on the other side she finds a wall. The ghost gives Jo blades, which her hands make her eat. She chews them and cuts her lower jaw and tongue. Afterwards, a baby-like specimen is lodged in her throat, making her suffocate to death. While watching all this, and calls Orn again. Orn wakes up to the ringing of the phone but seems to be unable to find it. Suddenly, she feels the phone stuck inside her right cheek. The ghost stands in the corner watching her, but when she looks towards her, she's slammed into the side of the elevator. The phone in her cheek breaks due to the impact. The shattered pieces of the broken phone fall out from her mouth, accompanied by a lot of blood. She tries to run, but is put in a box and placed behind Yem. Nook runs into air with the bag attached to her head in the control room. Yem's is being controlled by the ghost into cutting orange limbs. Back in the corridor, Nook opens the bag and looks at air. She then grabs a pair of scissors from the purse and starts cutting the stitches on her neck. Nook manages to cut the stitches and pulls the string out of her neck, but instead of the bag, A's head drops down to the floor. Nook runs down the stairs towards the exit, but on the stairs she finds some nurses walking down. She calls to them, but finds out that they are not actually nurses but some deranged beings. They surround Nook, who pulls out the pregnancy test strip and starts to kill them one by one. After cutting Oren's leg in an arm and looks at her hands, which are now holding a dentist's mouth clamps, a flashback begins in which Tahani is being held down. Yem's crying, saying that Toan is not dead. Im kisses on her on the forehead and then kills herself after killing the attackers. Nook runs outside, where she is beaten to the point where her child dies. Enraged, she plucks out a stake from the ground and charges at Toan. However, the stake ends up pointing towards herself. Just then, the clock strikes 12, making the ghost lose power and making her squirm in pain. Taking the opportunity, Nook drives the stake into the ghost, but Toan starts laughing at Nook. She then pins Nook down and uses the hospital's medic sign to crush her head in the hospital as Dr. Tar is dragging Towan's body up the stairs. He recalls seeing her in a wedding dress. It is revealed that Toan was actually languid, but with surgery, he turned himself into woman. Tal goes into a flashback in which he's flirting with every one of the 6 nurses. Toan latches onto Tar. He tries to push her away from himself, but she's stronger. They both look to the side, where they hear the sound of a liquid splashing to see Nook throwing petrol on Towan's body. A flashback begins, which reveals that Nook was the one who stabbed Toan in the heart. After that, Tak tells her that he will marry her. She lights a match and throws it on the body, setting it alight. As a result, the ghost disappears as Tar and Nook run down the stairs. Nook suddenly starts screaming in pain as Toan comes out of her. He goes over towards Tar and says, "Marry me," and the screen blacks out. That was all from the video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe for more content like this and hit the like button to help us out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to explain your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.